It was a clear, crisp morning in Palo Alto when Elon Musk walked into the upscale restaurant, the Lark. He didn't expect anything out of the ordinary, just a quiet meal away from the buzzing distractions of Silicon Valley. But what happened next would quickly spiral into something much larger than a simple lunch. Elon had always been one to avoid the spotlight when he didn't need it. He was a man of action, not ceremony, and today was meant to be no different. The Lark had a reputation for offering exceptional service and a laid-back yet elegant atmosphere. Its polished modern design was the perfect contrast to the often chaotic life that Elon led. A few moments of calm, away from the headlines, was exactly what he needed. As he stepped inside, the restaurant's quiet hum of conversation briefly paused as people recognized him. Elon smiled to himself. He wasn't used to the intense gaze of the public, but he was accustomed to it. He removed his sunglasses, nodded to the hostess, and was quickly led to a corner table. The world outside felt far away for a moment. He sat down, ordered a glass of water, and scanned the menu, his mind already shifting to the work that awaited him later in the day. But then it happened. The manager, a middle-aged man with a neatly groomed beard and a sharp suit, appeared at Elon's table with a stiff, uncertain expression. "Excuse me, Mr. Musk," the manager said, his voice wavering slightly, "but I'm going to have to ask you to remove your shirt." Elon blinked. The request seemed strange, almost absurd. He looked down at his attire, just a simple black t-shirt with a SpaceX logo. He didn't wear anything too flashy, nor was he trying to make a statement. It was just his usual comfort. "I'm sorry, I don't understand," Elon said, leaning forward slightly. The manager, clearly uncomfortable, repeated himself. "Our dress code prohibits any branded or company-specific logos. It's in the policy for the sake of maintaining neutrality." Elon raised an eyebrow, his expression calm but now clearly puzzled. "Are you serious?" he asked, leaning back in his chair. "I'm literally here for lunch. I didn't think a logo would be a problem." The manager's posture became more rigid. "It's part of our policy. We don't want to endorse any business or brand." Elon stared at the man for a long moment. He was used to controversy, used to facing difficult situations, but this was a new kind of challenge, one that didn't quite make sense to him. "You're asking me to take off my shirt because of a logo," he said slowly. The manager nodded. Elon took a deep breath, keeping his tone measured. "Look, I'm not here to make a scene, but I don't think this is a policy worth enforcing. If you'd prefer I leave, then I'll go, but this feels a bit excessive." A few nearby patrons were now looking at the exchange, some whispering among themselves, others watching quietly. The manager's face reddened slightly. "If you don't comply, I'll have to ask you to leave the premises." Elon's lips tightened for a moment, and then, with a faint sigh, he stood. "Fine, I'll go." He turned, grabbing his water glass and leaving it behind, and walked out without another word. Outside, the air felt fresher, and Elon paused for a moment to take in the scene around him. He wasn't angry, just bemused, perhaps a little disappointed by the way things had played out. The manager, standing by the door and watching, seemed to regret the decision the moment Elon left. Inside, the hushed conversations resumed, but the tension was thick. Elon didn't leave immediately. He walked a few blocks down to a small park, sat on a bench and pulled out his phone. There were messages waiting, and he quickly began typing. He wasn't looking for sympathy, he just wanted clarity. Was he overreacting, or had the restaurant crossed a line? Friends quickly responded, many voicing support. "That's ridiculous. You handled it better than I would have," one message read. "Are they serious?" another friend texted. Elon considered their responses thoughtfully. But it wasn't just about the restaurant or the conflict. It was about something bigger. What if this could be an opportunity for something positive? What if he could turn the situation into a moment for meaningful dialogue? Within minutes, a new idea was beginning to take shape in Elon's mind. He wasn't going to let this small incident go unnoticed or allow it to turn into something petty. He decided that a public demonstration of unity and inclusivity was exactly what was needed to counteract the incident. He started making a few calls. Elon didn't hesitate. He knew how to move quickly when the time was right. This wasn't just about settling an issue. It was about turning an uncomfortable moment into a platform for something greater. He would turn this into a fundraiser, a way to focus attention on positive causes. But not just any fundraiser. This one would emphasize open-mindedness, respect, and acceptance. The message would be loud and clear. Inclusivity, respect, and understanding were more important than any dress code or corporate brand. Elon didn't want this to be just another typical event. It wasn't about raising funds for a single cause or a charity with limited scope. It was about sparking a conversation, a broader discussion about the values he believed in. He envisioned an event that would invite people from all walks of life, people who might not normally cross paths, to come together and engage in meaningful conversation. It would be a celebration of ideas, a chance to share innovations, challenge assumptions, and promote tolerance. The event would be hosted outside the very restaurant that had asked him to leave, as a symbolic stand against the rigidity of conformity. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here was a place that had tried to impose a policy of exclusion, and yet it would become the backdrop for a message of unity. By the next morning, word had begun to spread. Elon had reached out to various local organizations that promoted open dialogue, innovation, and collaboration. He tapped into his network of thought leaders, educators, and activists, people who shared his belief that the world needed more connection and fewer barriers. The event would draw attention not only from Silicon Valley, but from across the country. It was going to be an event that challenged perceptions and inspired action. The scene outside the Lark was quickly transformed. What had been a small, quiet parking lot was now a bustling hub of activity. Trucks lined the streets unloading tents, chairs, and sound equipment. Volunteers and organizers scrambled to set up booths that represented a diverse range of causes. Some booths were dedicated to promoting STEM education and the space exploration field that Elon was so passionate about. Others focused on sustainability, renewable energy, and cutting-edge tech innovations that could change the world. As the afternoon approached, the atmosphere became electric. Live music began to play, setting the mood for what was quickly becoming an extraordinary gathering. The crowd began to trickle in, curious, open-minded individuals drawn by the promise of something different. Elon moved through the crowd, talking to attendees, answering questions, and offering insights wherever he could. He wasn't the star of the event. He was just another person showing up for something greater, eager to see how this spontaneous gathering would unfold. People were sharing ideas, laughing, and interacting with one another in ways that felt organic and real. It was a stark contrast to the sterile and often divisive nature of modern discourse. The event had quickly become a platform where people could be heard, regardless of their background or beliefs. Whether they were young tech enthusiasts, seasoned engineers, or passionate activists, everyone was welcome. And the message was clear. It wasn't about brands, logos, or even politics. It was about unity, respect, and the understanding that everyone, no matter their background, deserves to be treated with dignity. By the time the fundraiser reached full swing, the energy was contagious. Families were interacting with each other, exchanging stories, and enjoying the vibrant displays of innovation. Tech enthusiasts were sharing ideas, brainstorming solutions to the world's most pressing problems. Young entrepreneurs pitched their green energy startups, while others debated how to make space exploration more inclusive and accessible to everyone. There was a palpable sense of community, a shared understanding that together they could accomplish something meaningful. Meanwhile, inside the Lark, the manager watched from a distance, his earlier decision weighing heavily on his mind. He couldn't help but feel a sense of regret. The once bustling dining room now felt oddly empty, the customers more focused on the lively event outside than the meal in front of them. He peered out the window, watching the crowds mingling, hearing the sounds of laughter and conversation rise into the air. He saw something in the crowd, a sense of belonging, of purpose, that he hadn't expected. This wasn't just a fundraiser, it was an event that had united people in a way that he hadn't seen in years. One of his servers came up to him, leaning in as he glanced out the window. "People are saying we should have been part of it, that it looks amazing out there. Maybe we should have handled it differently?" The manager hesitated, his fingers drumming on the table. Deep down, he knew the situation had spiraled beyond his control. The choice he made, simple as it seemed in the moment, had far-reaching consequences that he wasn't prepared for. The server paused, waiting for a response, but the manager remained lost in thought, his gaze fixed on the scene unfolding outside. And then, as the afternoon stretched into evening, something shifted in him. The once firm decision to stand by the restaurant's policy now felt empty in comparison to what was happening right in front of him. It was clear that the event had grown beyond Elon Musk's personal vendetta. It had become something larger, a movement, even. The manager finally made up his mind. He stepped outside, his shoes tapping softly on the concrete as he walked toward Elon. The crowd paused for a brief moment, sensing the significance of the interaction, and then went quiet, waiting to see what would happen next. Elon noticed the manager's approach and stood, extending a hand in greeting. The manager shook it firmly, his voice sincere as he spoke. "I owe you an apology," he said. "I misjudged the situation, and I made a mistake. I didn't realize what kind of opportunity I was passing up by turning you away. This, this event, what you've done here, is incredible. It's more than just a fundraiser. It's a message." Elon gave him a measured look, his expression thoughtful. "I respect that you're owning up to it. It's about learning from these moments. Everyone can make mistakes. What matters is how we move forward." The manager smiled a little sheepishly. "We've got a lot to learn, don't we?" Elon's smile was subtle but genuine. "We all do, and maybe this is the first step." They stood there for a moment, watching the crowd from a distance, feeling the pulse of excitement and optimism around them. It felt like a moment of quiet triumph. The event they had both contributed to in their own ways, one through controversy, the other through humility, had become more than just an event. It had become a symbol, a reminder that even in our differences, there's common ground to be found. And sometimes it's the most unexpected circumstances that open the door to those possibilities. And in that moment, it felt as though something bigger than a single policy or a single disagreement had been accomplished. It was a reminder that sometimes it's not about who is right. It's about coming together to build something meaningful. And that was worth more than any brand, logo, or policy ever could be.